Worth right now, the guys calling the game for you, Joe Davis and Brady Quinn.
Number 3 TCU and Stephen F. Austin. We're in Fort Worth, Texas, ready to get the home opener for TCU started on a perfect day for football with the temperatures in the low 80s, a light breeze as these two teams meet for the second time in their program's histories. Joe Davis with Brady Quinn here at Amon Carter Stadium. We now bring in the third member of our crew, Chris Budd.
Thanks, Joe. It has been a tough week for Gary Patterson and his defense. A slew of injuries to run through them for you. Defensive end James McFarland and linebacker Sammy Douglas are now out for the year. Also, defensive tackle Davion Pearson is not going to be back for today's game. He was doubtful. And the freshman linebacker Mike Freeze is now out for personal reasons, not for an injury or for discipline. So 2 freshmen will start for Gary Patterson at the linebacker position. He says he's used to this. A couple years ago, he was down to only about 50 healthy players. Then again, Joe, you usually don't experience this early in the season.
And you usually, around here, don't experience these kinds of expectations. Playoff aspirations for the Horned Frogs and underway in their home opener. This is Aaron Piper to bring it back for Stephen F. Austin. And the Lumberjacks will get it going at the 21 as Piper loses his helmet. And Brady Quinn, give us 3 things we need to know when the Lumberjacks happen.
It starts with the quarterback, Zach Conk, the SLC newcomer of the year last year. He's going to be a dual threat QB in this game. And in the backfield, they lose Gus Johnson, now with the Dallas Cowboys. Joshua West will try to take over the running back duties. And for TCU's defense, it's really a next man up mentality. They lost a ton of talent from last year's team, and now they've been plagued with injuries and some off-the-field issues.
Yeah, like Chris talked about, they're without Douglas, they're without Freeze, without McFarland and Pearson up front. And it's a unit that was already having to replace 6 of their top 7 tacklers from what was the Big 12's top defense a year ago. They start with a trick play. And here comes Piper with a first down across the 35. And why not start the game like that if you're a big-time underdog like the Lumberjacks are?
You know, you've got the opportunity to be on the national stage as an FCS team, so why not start the game with a little bit of flair? And we talked about it, TCU, there's a lot of inexperience on that side of the field. So some of these misdirection plays you'll probably see throughout the game by the Lumberjacks.
It is consistently one of the top offenses in the country at the FCS level. And this year, they're working behind one of the more experienced offensive lines in FCS.
Some guys who are getting some NFL looks up front, in particular at the left guard, and right tackle positions. That's Williams, Vaughn, and Dane. They're big, powerful guys with a lot of athleticism, too. It's a rare combination that you see at the FCS level. These guys have it all, and that's why you see NFL scouts here.
There's Clint Conk, who was a runner-up for National Coach of the Year that Gary Patterson won a season ago. Aaron Piper motions out of the backfield, and Josh West's first carry goes for nothing. Chris Bradley, part of the interior of that TCU defense with a tackle, and it's 2nd down and 11.
This is going to be a good opportunity for the defensive lineman for TCU to really step up. Guys like Chris Bradley, Tevin Lawson, number 99, Aaron Curry, number 95, step into this role, get some experience playing time, and show the coaches what you can do.
On 2nd down, play action pass, and Conk's first throw is incomplete. Wide to the fullback, Jabraylon Allen, and instead looks at a 3rd down and 11. Not a comfortable spot against any defense.
No, and in particular versus a defense run by head coach Gary Patterson. You know, at times he can bring a lot of pressure, but with the talent they have on the defensive side of the football, they feel comfortable just rushing 4 most times and playing coverage in and behind.
It's a screen, and it's thrown into the ground. That play was blown up from the start. Terrell Lathan forced Conk to kill the ball into the turf, and it's 4th down.
Big number 90, Terrell Lathan's going to be coming off your edge at the bottom of your screen. He's really their speed rusher coming off the edge. He uses his power to get by most defensive tackles, and he's got a nice little arm chop, too. So he doesn't allow those offensive linemen to get their big mitts on him.
Cavante Turpin, talented true freshman, back to return this punt from Nick Bruno. And Stephen F. Austin spreads the field with this punt formation. Bruno struggled some in the opener last week. A loss against Northern Arizona. It has this one bouncing inside the 20 on a punt of 47 yards. So this TCU offense takes the field. Brady, give us 3 things we need to know.
Well, it starts with Boykin, but he's got a lot of talent around him at the wide receiver position. But really, who makes it all possible for him? The big boys up front. In particular, center Joey Hunt. He's the quarterback up front making all the calls. And for the Lumberjacks defense, Justin Owens is an outstanding player. He'll be behind a very experienced defensive line, but it's the secondary that's got their hands full today.
Now, it's part of a secondary, Brady, that is only returning 1 starter from last year. And now facing off with a Heisman contender, Trevon Boykin, who starts his day with a throw outside to Sean Nixon. And the redshirt freshman from Austin, Texas, drops it, 2nd down. Boykin, the 5th-year senior, missed some throws last week, but when you talk to coordinator Sonny Cumbie, he'd tell you that he also made some throws he wouldn't have last year.
And he made some plays with his feet as well to really put them into 1st down scenarios or better field position.
Boykin scanning that defense with the play clock winding down. Play action. Tice Lanino with a short gain. 3 or 4, and 3rd down coming up on TCU's first possession.
Typically, TCU's offense likes to run at a little faster pace, but with the progression of Trevon Boykin, they feel like they can put more on his shoulders to get them into the right play. That's why you see him be a little more hesitant at the line. He wants to make sure he's got the right call for the right defense.
On 3rd and 6, Green motions out, throw underneath, knocked away. They wanted a flag, won't get it. Marlon Walls, who played well in the opener for Stephen F. Austin last week, broke it up.
And really tight coverage on the outside, not necessarily the place where I'd want to go with the football. He had his running back, Aaron Green, out in the flats with some space to run. And this is some of the pressure that Trevon Boykin's going to have to deal with now that he's a Heisman front runner. They have all this national attention. There's no way of going about not hearing about it, right?
Yeah.
In the common day of social media.
Ethan Perry, 4-year starter at punter, out there to send it away to a former Big 12 athlete, Judah Jones, who watches it shanked into the TCU sideline. And a TCU team that got a road win at Minnesota last week and dropped a spot in the polls. Less than impressive over the first couple of minutes of this one. Each team with a possession, nothing to show for it, no score. Welcome you back into Fort Worth and inside our broadcast booth. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, TCU coming off a road win in Minnesota, but they dropped a spot in the polls, and it's only 2 minutes in this one, but not the prettiest start.
Well, that's the problem with having expectations. You have to win, but you have to win convincingly, and so far, even in this game, TCU has not gotten off to the start they'd like. 1 for 3 for Trevon Boykin in the passing game, and a shank punt by Ethan Perry now puts Stephen F. Austin in great field position.
Yeah, punt officially went just 14 yards. And Zach Conk will get it outside quickly. On 1st down, it was Tejada combining with Johnson on the stop. They went to Reggie Daniels, the freshman, with his first career catch.
You know, number 30, Denzel Johnson for TCU's defense. He's got some big shoes to fill. Last year, strong safety Sam Carter was a huge impact player, and at that strong safety position, he's going to come down and make a ton of plays in the run game and pass game. So it's pretty important for Denzel Johnson to mix in this scheme and understand it early on in his inexperienced playing career.
Here's Joshua West replacing Gus Johnson, the school's all-time leading rusher, and now a Dallas Cowboy. A short gain, and Montrell Wilson, who's making his first career start with Sammy Douglas out, was there for the tackle. It's 3rd down.
And we talked about some of that inexperience, but where it hurts TCU most is at the linebacker position. These spread offenses stretch the field, and they really stretch those linebackers and make them play more in space. So it'll be important for Montrell Wilson to be a good tackler in space today.
Lumberjacks trying to take advantage of good field position off of the shanked punt. Against a four-man rush, Conk steps up in the pocket. He'll take off and get a first down. Conk is to the 20 on a run of 13 yards. Got popped by Kindred and Iloka.
And Conk isn't the fastest guy on the field, but he is probably the biggest. He's 6'6", 240 pounds, and he's agile enough to be, once he gets upfield, he is tough to bring down. It took a few TCU tacklers to bring down Conk for the first down.
He makes you look slight.
Hey, I thought I was big.
Yeah, not after you see Zach Conk, who grew up a Notre Dame fan with your picture on his wall. Who didn't, though? Conk with all kinds of time and all kinds of space. And you mentioned it, not the greatest speed, but still able to get 8 or 9 on first down. Time for a game break from Lowe's. Here's Jenny Taft.
Joe, thanks. What could have been an unbelievable upset in overtime. 4th down, Jacksonville State trying to tie it against Auburn. Eli Jenkins with the pass, but it's incomplete. The 6th-ranked Tigers escaped this one. Final 27-20. Joe Brady, what a finish.
Wow, Jenny, TCU needs to look no farther than that. You see that FCS teams are capable of making things interesting. Conk under pressure will dump it, and it'll be 3rd and short.
A big opportunity here for Stephen F. Austin versus a much more talented team in TCU. You really don't know how many opportunities you'll have to get down this deep in the field. You got to wonder on the road if they don't get this 3rd down, if they would think about possibly going for it on 4th down. But don't be surprised if they don't utilize this bunch by the wide receivers at the bottom of the screen. Minnesota was very effective last week going against it versus TCU.
On 3rd and short, it's a quarterback power play. That's another thing that Minnesota was effective with against TCU last week.
Yeah, Mitch Leidner for Minnesota was very effective at the running at the quarterback position. It's incredibly difficult to be able to handle all the defensive players in the box when you're talking about the run blocking schemes. But if you have a quarterback who can run the football, now you've got the advantage again. And Stephen F. Austin has that in Zach Conk, the head coach's son, might I add.
And they've got a 1st down and goal on their 2nd drive of the game. It's a screen underneath down to the 6.
Robert Sylvester, number 19. He's a speed demon. They like him as a vertical threat, but they also like to get the ball in his hands in some of the screen game and allow him to hit one of those alleys and turn it upfield.
Yeah, the team best 8 catches for 75 yards in the opener last week. Entered the game with only 10 catches in his career. On 2nd and goal. Piper motions out. They throw it to him. Needs blocks. Can't get him. Liggins fanned on a block, and Derek Kindred from his safety spot dropped him. 3rd down and goal.
Derek Kindred, really the leader of this defense. Returning back with the most starts. And he's such a talented player, such a vocal leader on the back end, getting guys lined up, communicating. Leader in the weight room. Strength to say he's one of the strongest guys on the team, pound for pound.
Big play early on for the Lumberjacks offense. 3rd down and goal. Conk with time, throwing for the corner and incomplete. Looking for Liggins on the corner out, defended by Denzel Johnson. 4th down.
And you might see Stephen F. Austin go for more 4th downs than you think because their kicker, Mason Joel, he's not kicking today. It seems like he had an injured groin, so they've got some inexperience there. Not that Joel really was that experienced himself, only having 1 made career field goal. So,
at the end of the day, field goals aren't beating TCU.
No, you got to score touchdowns, in particular in the red zone, and that's where Minnesota was effective last week versus TCU.
Conk again with time, but running out of it. Shovels it underneath, and West goes down at the 6. Montrell Wilson with a tackle. The Lumberjacks turn it over on downs, and TCU takes over at its own 7-yard line. Stephen F. Austin, a playoff team at the FCS level a season ago, unable to take advantage of the short field. Horned Frogs with it after this. Now, TCU had 4 10-win seasons prior to 2000. They all came in the 1930s when a lot of that hardware was won. Of course, LT doing his thing in a TCU uniform, but The last 15 years or so, there's been not many teams better across America than the Horned Frogs. How about our Ford keys to the game today, Brady?
Well, for Stephen F. Austin, it will be caging Trevon Boykin, keeping him in the pocket. He becomes most dangerous once he gets outside and can create with his legs. And for TCU, they need to put up style points. As you can see, they dropped a spot in the AP poll in this past week because they didn't score enough.
They go play action on first down, and Josh Dotson spinning his way across the 30. Set a school record last year with more than 1,000 yards and led the team with 8 catches last week.
And this is one of the routes that Josh Dotson's been working on, is this post route, some of the intermediate routes. They want to get Trevon Boykin better at throwing them and Josh Dotson better at running them and getting open.
They go to Aaron Green on first down. Good surge from that offensive line for 3 or 4. And second down coming up.
TCU now picking up the pace. And this is what they like to do. They like to put pressure on the defense to get lined up and deal with their substitutions. They like to get 80 to 100 plays a game, they say.
Boykin on second down, all day to throw. Taking a shot down the field for the track star, Listenby. Inside the 15 and a completion of 51 yards.
When TCU's in the field, they like to isolate Colby Listenby one-on-one. He is so fast down the field. Trevon Boykin heaved that about 60, 65 yards.
Here's Green making a cut in the hole, and Aaron Green is down to the 5 as we go back to that long completion.
There's nothing special about this. It's just Colby Listenby one-on-one on the outside, and he's going to beat you with his speed. And Trevon Boykin, he's got the arm to be able to get it there. I mean, that is 65 yards in every bit of it.
Penetration this time shutting Green down. He lost a yard. Justin Owens was there. And TCU looking at a third down and short.
Expect a quarterback sneak here.
That's what they do. They needed 3 yards and got 5.
They don't get under center much, and when they do, you know it's a quarterback sneak or they're trying to spike a ball in 2 minutes. Besides that, they're typically always in shotgun. This is where TCU is so tough to defend because Trevon Boykin's so athletic and he can scramble and use his legs to get in the end zone. It's just incredibly difficult to defend against TCU, all these weapons they have.
On first and goal, looking to throw the fade. Lance Dotson. Incomplete. Heck of an effort working against Demondre Freeman, who had a rough time in the opener against Northern Arizona. Almost pulled this one in.
Yeah, and Dotson's just going to run a little fade route to the corner of the end zone. This is what they like to utilize him most. He's a big, tall wide receiver standing at 6'3", and he can really high point the football. Unfortunately, couldn't corral that one in.
On second down, it's Green. Big hole, touchdown. 93.
Well, we talked about the experience of this TCU offensive line. Check out the big fellas up front. Number 55, Joey Hunt, Jamal Neff, Brady Fultz, the center and guards inside. And they basically paved the way for Aaron Green to walk in pretty much untouched.
With his first touchdown of the season, Jaden Obercromb's extra point is good. That didn't take long after a sloppy first drive that was a 3-and-out. A minute 56. Listenby with a 51-yard reception. Then it was Green on second and goal. Untouched into the end zone, and it's 7-0. Number 3. Boykin and the Horned Frogs marched down the field for their first home score of the season. It was Aaron Green who fumbled in the red zone last week in Minnesota. They thought missed a couple of cuts. They had no choice but to find that hole on that touchdown run.
Yeah, I mean, he really just basically ran forward. I think you might have been able to punch that one in.
I don't know what you're trying to say here. I think I definitely could have. Even have Austin to get it again. Putting up a good fight for 8 minutes or so. Here comes Aaron Piper. And Stephen F. Austin will start at the 25. There's a flag down and an injured player. The TCU player in a ton of pain back around the 10-yard line. That's Kenny Iloka, their starting safety.
During the return, holding, number 46, return team. Enforced from the spot of the foul, first down.
And so a TCU team that's already dealing with a slew of injuries on defense now sees one of their starting safeties clearly in a lot of pain after that special teams play. Back in a moment.
We're going to go back and take a look at that last kickoff where number 6, Kenny Iloka, on your screen. Appears as if he injured his knee as he cut in towards the ball carrier. This is the last thing TCU needs. They've been plagued with injuries so far this year. And you're talking about a team that's biting for the college football playoff spot. You got to have a little bit of luck, and injuries are one of those things you got to find a way to avoid if you can.
They stayed relatively healthy last year in the 12-1 season. You go back a year before that, different kind of luck. They go 4-8, losing a total, 5 losses, came by a total of 11 points within those 8 total losses on the season. So many things out of your hands once it actually becomes time to play the games, and the rankings no longer mean a whole lot. And that's all you have to talk about during the summer when you're leading up to the year. You build the hype, but when it's time to play, so much out of your control.
And it's tough, too, when you're talking about a defense that relies on experience. I mean, coming into this game, Gary Patterson really doesn't like to start true freshmen. But he was forced to start Mike Freeze. Now he's not playing in this particular game. Montrell Wilson steps in at the linebacker position. Another true freshman. Not necessarily the blueprint for Gary Patterson's defensive scheme.
Michael Downing has come into the game to replace Iloka at one of the safety spots. Conk with a quick throw into the flats, and Denzel Johnson made his first career start last week. Comes up to make the tackle and set up third down.
And this is what you'd like to see out of Denzel Johnson. You'll see him here in the middle of your screen. He's playing faster than he did a week ago. It seemed like he was a bit hesitant, wasn't utilizing his eyes to read his keys and then fire his gun. But as you can see right there, there was no hesitation in his feet.
It's about trusting it, right?
Yeah.
Third down and 6. Conk looking into the bunch formation, running out of time and getting sacked by Chris Bradley. His first sack of the season, and it's 4th down.
TCU's so effective up front. You look at Terrell Lathan, you look at Chris Bradley. I mean, these guys are fast off the ball, but they're also powerful. Right there is what you call an ET game. The end cuts before the tackle. He comes up around the top, and Zach Conk has nowhere to go. This is all the scheme that Gary Patterson's able to implement. You know, he watches and studies films and some of the tendencies of quarterbacks, and he designs a pass rush to be able to keep the quarterback in the pocket and suffocate it out around him.
Nick Bruno on the punt for the second time out of his own end zone. And the freshman Cavante Turpin, who's got a ton of talent. Here comes Turpin with a wall developing. Down to the 30. 51-yard punt was returned 31 yards. And great field position for TCU. Time for a game break. Let's check in with Jenny Taft.
Thanks, Joe. Well, this one is for Brady, number 9 Notre Dame visiting Virginia. How about the fake field goal? Durham Smythe takes it in for the 7-yard score. The 2-point conversion was no good, but the Irish up 6-0 in the first. Joe, Brady, back to you guys.
All right, Jenny, sure was an impressive opening week for the Irish.
Yeah, big win. I don't see them having too much trouble with UVA today. It just seemed like they'll be outmatched. And Notre Dame just got a ton of talent.
This drive starts from the 30. Ty Slanina makes a man miss and gets 5 yards before he's wrestled down by Justin Owens. Only had 1 catch last week. Already has 2 in this one.
They rotate all these wide receivers through. They're all so effective once they're able to get the ball in space and make cuts or make moves on any defense. They make a simple completion turn into many more yards after that.
On 2nd and 5. Play action for Boykin. Steps in the pocket. Down the middle and off of the hands of Sean Nixon. Hard to call that a drop, but second one he's had his hands on today and not pulled in.
Would have been a tough catch, but Sean Nixon, a guy who really hasn't had a ton of experience, but they're utilizing him often early in this game. They tried to slip him out of the backfield with a little play-action fake right down the middle of the defense. He was open. Well, Boykin's got to get him a little more catchable ball.
3rd down and 5. Let's see if Stephen F. Austin brings heat. They do. Boykin gets rid of it and beats the pressure with Listenby for a pickup of 16, and it's 1st and goal for TCU.
And this is the biggest difference from a year ago. Trevon Boykin is so poised. He sees that their pressure's coming. They're not going to be able to block all of them. And he sits in the pocket and delivers a strike to Colby Listenby.
Green on a stretch play. Aaron Green with his 2nd touchdown of this opening quarter.
What you can do when you're playing against the number 3 team in the country is miss tackles. And number 3, Jermod Williams had an opportunity, but Aaron Green just gives him a slight little shoulder and finds his way into the end zone. And this is what TCU would like to do. They'd like to really showcase their running game. Everyone knows about Trevon Boykin and other wide receivers, but they'd like to dominate today's game, in particular with the running game and highlighting Aaron Green and his abilities.
Well, this drive lasted less than a minute. 4 plays and 30 yards, and capped off by Aaron Green's 2nd score of the day. It's 14-0 TCU. Stephen F. Austin facing its highest-ranked FBS opponent in program history, number 3 TCU. Preseason favorite to repeat as Big 12 champs, looking for a 2-0 start.
Yeah, and truly a David and Goliath story. I mean, I don't know how many people came in here expecting Stephen F. Austin after losing to Northern Arizona last week to come in here and really be able to compete. They're not the same team as last year. They don't have, really an all-conference player in the Southland Conference and running back Gus Johnson.
To Jones backs into the end zone, and Stephen F. Austin will begin at the 25. Tonight, our full day of college football caps off. A couple of teams looking to bounce back in week 2. Kevin Hogan didn't have his best performance against Northwestern in a week 1 loss. UCF lost to FIU. They'll now travel 2,427 miles. It's the longest trip for a continental U.S. team this year.
Hope they're getting their frequent flyer miles.
They better be getting them.
Hogan's really got to step up if Stanford wants to compete in the Pac-12. It's kind of his time now to shine, and he struggled in that opening game versus Northwestern.
You saw Aaron Green on the trainer's table there getting that groin worked on some. He dealt with a groin injury throughout spring practice and saw very little action during the spring, still working himself into game shape. This drive begins with a play that is shut down. It was Traven Howard, sophomore from Longview, Texas, at the linebacker spot.
Yeah, and you're already starting to see some of the younger players rotate in different positions, and Trayvon Howard wastes no time in filling that hole created by the Stephen F. Austin offensive line. That's what they teach you when you're a linebacker, Joe. When you see a hole open, there's someone else coming there, whether it's the ball carrier or lead blocker, so you got to fill it.
And Howard did, so 2nd down and a dozen. Conk Booting will dump it off, and Josh West gets cut down and loses the football, but they say that it was down. Denzel Johnson playing a good game so far. Came up to make the stop.
And they really need him to. TCU runs this 4-2-5 scheme. What that means is they essentially just play nickel. But that position, that strong safety position they call it, number 30 Denzel Johnson plays, is incredibly key because he's so versatile. He has to cover, but he has to be effective too in stopping the run.
3rd down and 14. 4-man rush. Conk running out of time. Steps away from Henderson. Throws it back over the middle, and it is incomplete. Reggie Daniels had a step, but was unable to pull it in, and it's 4th down.
And you got to credit the TCU secondary. Really no one open downfield. Zach Kong did all he could to buy time with his feet. Number 25, Daniels, just couldn't get open. Stephen F. Austin's utilizing a lot of bunch formations. Last week versus Minnesota, TCU struggled a bit versus the bunch. But it seems like they've done their homework, and whatever holes they had in their defense, they figured it out over this past week.
Another opportunity for Turpin. Trying to wrestle away, but can't. Returns it for a couple of yards after a 44-yard punt. Gary Patterson's squad will start at the 40. Took over as defensive coordinator back in the late 90s. Became the head coach for the bowl game in 2000. Was head coach for a full season for the first time in 2001. Their first year in Conference USA. He transitioned them into the Mountain West, where he won 4 titles in 7 years. Then into the Big 12 in 2011. Won just 6 games over the first 2 seasons in the conference. But then out of the blue, 12-1 last season, somehow missed out in the college football playoff. Huge win in the Peach Bowl to cap the year. Waking to throw on first down. Taking a shot. Listen me. Touchdown, TCU. There is a flag down back in the backfield.
Might actually end up being a late hit. It doesn't appear to be an offensive holding, so I think this is going to stand as a touchdown.
Personal foul. Roughing the passer. Number 93. Defense. On the first play after the...
We talked about it earlier in the game. That's Colby Listenby at the top of your screen. He's just going to run a post route, and he's going to beat anyone on the Stephen F. Austin team with speed. You can't teach it. That's just something you're born with, and Colby Listenby's got it. He's the Big 12 100-meter champion. Just a blazing fast player, and they utilize him all the time in the field. They're trying to work on some of the shorter passes.
Yeah.
Like to be more of a complete wide receiver, but what can you do when you're that fast?
Yeah, I know. I mean, you probably would have liked to have a guy like that back in your college days, huh? Run behind the D.
I think every quarterback would. Anytime you got a guy that can win in a one-on-one matchup.
Colby Listenby, 3 catches for 129 yards, including this touchdown strike from 60, blowing by Trey Roster. Fox Sports 1 College Football is presented by Geico. Brady, you mentioned the speed for Colby Listenby and the track prowess. How about a 10:03 in the 100 meters?
I would be the guy that's not even in the screen right there coming up the back. Yeah, he's just so tough to defend. And he's very sound as a wide receiver. You know, he does all the right things as far as when you watch him run his routes. Gives good indicators coming in and out of his cuts, but you can just see his progression. How much better he's gotten from last year to this year, really honing in on his wide receiver skills. His hands have improved, something they talked about throughout the course of training camp.
He had 3 catches in his first 2 seasons, did Listenby, but then 41 grabs last year.
And part of that's the change of offense, right? You bring in Doug Meacham and Sonny Cumbie, the offensive coordinators, and all of a sudden they expand the playbook where they're taking more shots downfield.
Sylvester takes a knee. They pooch that one down there, having to kick from the 50 because of the roughing the passer penalty. We were talking about Gary Patterson and the turnaround of this program. Not really the turnaround, but more the emergence into what is now, I think, really on the verge of being one of the nation's elite programs.
Yeah, and it's 2 things that Gary Patterson did. He was flexible enough to realize that he had to change his offensive scheme. So he brought in Doug Meacham and Sonny Cumbie. They've opened up this offense. And what it's allowed is a transcendent player here at TCU in Trevon Boykin to really utilize his strengths, his dual threat ability, his big playmaking ability with that cannon for an arm. So I think you got to credit Gary Patterson for understanding that this is now the new day and age of college football. It's spread offenses, it's high-powered, high-scoring. Everyone's adapting to it at this point. Even Nick Saban brought in Lane Kiffin. They spread it out a little bit last season.
More than half of the Stephen F. Austin plays on offense have gone for 0 or negative yards. Yeah, this one is right about that territory as well as Conk gets back to the line of scrimmage. And we go down to Chris Budd.
Joe, Kenny Ioka is in the locker room now having scans done on that right knee. I'll get you more information after halftime as soon as it becomes available.
All right, Chris. And Gary Patterson's team already dealing with plenty of injuries. Had to replace 6 players from that defense last year. Not just 6 players, but 5 all-conference players. And ravaged by injuries early on this year. Josh West with a short gain, and it's 3rd down. Aaron Curry, the Nebraska transfer, with the tackle.
Stephen F. Austin wants to get back in this game. They've got to have more production on 1st down. They keep finding themselves in 3rd and 8+, and that makes it incredibly difficult for a team that can't seem to get a wide receiver open downfield, and eventually that pass rush is going to get there.
Conk has run for a couple of 1st downs on 3rd down opportunities. Here he throws the tunnel. Piper gets swung down. Traven Howard read it beautifully, and it's 4th down.
Yeah, Stephen F. Austin likes to try to utilize these middle screens, what they call them, but they're incredibly dangerous to me. I mean, you're throwing the ball back towards the middle of the field with a ton of TCU defenders are out around it. And they saw it enough on film last week when the Lumberjacks played Northern Arizona. So again, Gary Patterson's team and really their whole coaching staff has done a nice job of getting this team amped up for this game. They don't seem to be coming out flat, kind of like they did last week versus Minnesota.
Good spiraling kick sends Turpin back inside his zone 30. And Turpin bounces outside. I think the folks in Fort Worth are leaning to sit on the edges of their seats when Cavante Turpin goes back to return. That brings his 1st quarter to a close. After a sloppy start, TCU starts looking like TCU. And another playmaker brought into the fold, and the freshman Cavante Turpin. Another big return onto the 2nd quarter in Fort Worth. Sports 1 College Football is presented by Geico. And back here in Fort Worth, where I think Stephen F. Austin is starting to fear the frog. Your co-offensive coordinators for TCU, Doug Meacham is down in the field, and Sonny Cumbie up in the booth. These 2 guys came in last season, and Gary Patterson elected to change philosophically how his program was, bringing these guys in to run a wide-open offense.
Yeah, and a big change. You know, you call Doug Meacham more the surfer dude. When it comes game time, he's more laid back, a little more cool, and Sonny Cumbie's more the intense one. When he's got to kind of calm down a little bit before the game.
Another short field to work with. Most of that 1st quarter was played on this half. How about this? A flea flicker. Boykin off of the hands of Emmanuel Porter. It's the 3rd drop we've seen from a TCU receiver today.
Well, Minnesota ran a flea flicker that was successful versus TCU last week so much that TCU wanted to put it in this week. So they tried a little flea flicker action, and Emmanuel Porter beat his guy so bad, ran a circle around him.
Yeah, ran a comeback back to the defender.
Yeah. And look, they rotate these guys in. Emmanuel Porter, number 81, Juwan Storr, you'll see him as well, but they've got to do the little things right, and catching the football consistently is one of them.
Good open field tackle for George Stone III, who's making his 1st career start. He shared time last week with Chance Barney, but they liked his athleticism and needed it to stop Cavante Turpin for a gain of 4.
Yeah, transfer from Sacramento City College. He had 84 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. Spent 2 seasons there, and quite the player.
Boykin, strong arm throw to the outside. Dotson's got a 1st down inside the 20. Marlon Walls with a tackle, and the Horned Frogs convert 3rd down.
Yeah, the Lumberjacks are going to force TCU to throw balls in front of them. They're going to play back a little deeper with their cornerbacks, not get beat deep. I mean, we've already seen that a number of times today.
And a short run on 1st down. That's Kyle Hicks with his 1st carry of the season. Sophomore out of Arlington, Texas, and part of a deep running back stable. It was mostly Aaron Green last week. But Hicks into the fold here in the 2nd quarter.
Stephen F. Austin, 1st time out of the half.
Lumberjacks use a timeout. TCU on the move again, spending much of this half on this half of the field. Yeah, leading 21-0. The home opener in Fort Worth. Big time expectations here this season. Horned Frogs trying to get to 2-0 to start it off. Purple on purple matchup today. TCU, Stephen F. Austin. Although if you ask our producer Eric Bilgemeyer, he'd call it blue. I think he has some slight colorblind issues.
But maybe he's right. Maybe we're all wrong.
Yeah, it could be. He said his mom told him that when he was young. You got the purple tie going.
It was funny in the notes, you know, Stephen F. Austin talked about they actually play 4 other opponents this season with purple in their uniforms. A lot of purple this year.
Or blue. Depends on who you ask, I guess. Out of the timeout, 2nd down and 7 for TCU. Great field position off with a Turpin punt return to finish the first quarter. Outside they go to Dotson. Slanina gives him a block, and he sets up 1st and goal. Now last week, 23 points in a win. It was the lowest total since these offensive coordinators took over. Sonny Cumbie told us that he did not like the effort on the outside against Minnesota.
Yeah, and the effort you saw right there was unselfish effort, blocking for your fellow man, for your fellow wide receiver. And that's where, you know, spread offense, it's so important for those outside wide receivers to really engage and block the guy in front of them. I think a lot of times wide receivers get worried about getting rolled up on and getting hurt from a play coming from behind them.
Boykin off of the play fake into the flats. It's Turpin bouncing off a tackle and diving in for the touchdown. It's the first of his career. And what at this point looks like will be the first of many.
He's not very big, but they run a little misdirection in the backfield, and Kavontae Turpin's just going to slip out into the flat. He's not a very big guy, but tough run right there. He's only 5'9", 152 pounds. If that's right. There's a bunch of other high school teammates on this team. Terrell Lathan, former James McFarland. All went to Nelville High School there in Monroe, Louisiana. Big recruiting spot for them.
Football hotbed. Louisiana produces more NFL players per capita than any other state. That sound right?
That doesn't sound right.
I think it's right, though. Look it up.
Okay.
Some of that TCU speed on display in the first half today.
Yeah, when you look at the bio of all these players for TCU, a lot of these guys have a track and field background. They come with blazing speed out of high school. And that's one of the key components, whether they're a wide receiver or someone in the secondary for Gary Patterson's defense. He talks about guys who can run. That's what is able to make them so effective. He feels like speed kills. And if he can put a guy out in space with a lot of speed, they're going to hurt you.
And it's actually, interestingly, been the size component and the depth component that they've had to add to what was already pretty good speed when they're a Mountain West program and back into the Conference USA days. But to become one of the top teams, not just in the Big 12, but in the country, he had to grow his roster depth-wise and size-wise to complement that speed.
In particular, when you have so many injuries like they've had, and we're only 2 games into the season.
Yeah, it's time for a game break. Yeah, speaking of speed, Jenny, SEC speed there. Zach Conk comes back out. He's completed 8 passes, but they've all been around the line of scrimmage. Those 8 completions have gone for a total of 3 yards. On first down from the 25, they roll him out. And Piper gets pounded by Denzel Johnson, who continues to be impressive today.
Yeah, really stepping up. Like as I said before, he's a little bit hesitant last week, but it seems like another week of practice under his belt. Now that he's kind of got the first game out of the way, he's really slipping into that spot, that big void that was left when Sam Carter departed. He's a big part of this defense.
One of the 5 all-conference players that this defense had to replace this year. 2nd down and 8. Good little burst from Josh West to get a few. Toppled by Ty Summers.
And offensive coordinator Matt Kubik for Stephen F. Austin talked about the fact that they felt like they needed to kind of dink and dunk a little bit. They didn't know if they could really stretch the field versus this TCU secondary. With 3rd and 5, a much easier to make down. TCU not really pressuring much, so it's really up to Zach Conk finding the open guy.
He's got time, but the coverage downfield too good. Ball came out. They let him play. TCU football. Chris Bradley with the recovery. It's a coverage sack right there.
100%. We keep talking about all day, but it's number 30, Denzel Johnson. Zach Conk was looking his direction. Really never had anyone open. And eventually that pass rush is going to get there. Chris Bradley eventually falls on the football, but it
is under further review.
Bryson Henderson, and
Tevin Lawson in there too.
Yeah.
There's a chance he was down. They're going to take a look at it. If it stands, it'd be the 27th consecutive game that TCU's defense had forced a turnover. That's the nation's longest streak.
They really live off those turnovers. When you listen to Gary Patterson talk in his meetings, they want to score as many points as they can, and they want to get turnovers. They feel like turnovers is the biggest indication in determining a win or a loss.
Well, they were
tough from that angle.
Third in the country last year in turnover margin. They forced 40 turnovers in that 12-1 season. Like he was maybe on top of a defender when he went down. But what do we know? Mike Pereira, let's bring him in, our rules expert. What'd you see, Mike?
You guys know all. What do you mean? There's no question that he's down, but you just hit it. I mean, something other than the hand or foot has to be on the ground. He's down on players to me, and you see the ball comes loose. So they should really confirm this, in my opinion, to a fumble.
After review, the ruling on the field stands. First down, TCU.
All right. Something you can't do if you want to stay in the game versus the nation's number 3 team, right?
Yeah.
Can't turn the football over, and you got to be more effective than they have so far.
Thanks to Mike Pereira, who missed the purple memo, but the orange looked good. So Conk turns it over, and TCU's got it. Again, with good field position and a different look here. Sean Nixon in running the Wildcat. Redshirt freshman that they use in all kinds of different roles. Here comes Turpin. Oh, my goodness. Cavante Turpin is inside the 15. I think that was R1, R2 was that move he did.
There was so many moving parts on that last play. How creative, though. Wow. And Cavante Turpin really just puts his foot in the ground. Little jump cut. Takes a pop from number 6, Zach Starnes, at the end, but boy, is he dynamic. They talked about it. They wanted to find ways of getting the football in his hands as much as possible today.
Listenby off of the sweep. Block from Green. Turns the corner. Pushed out of bounds by Starnes. Back-to-back tackles for the former JUCO All-American.
There's that unselfishness and that effort you see. Aaron Green being able to seal the edge to allow Colby Listenby's speed to take effect. And the jet sweep is what they call it. It's definitely a jet sweep, and you got a guy like Listenby carrying the football.
Yeah.
I wonder if Boykin's going to run this one.
They'll throw it. In zone. Jawan Story for the touchdown. You talk about depth at the skill spots, Brady. They've got it.
Well, size matters, and Jawan Story is 6 foot. Going against the smaller Jimmy Houston, who really doesn't have much experience. We just mentioned Trey Rosser, number 1, going out with an injury. Jimmy Houston just moved over from wide receiver to now cornerback for Stephen F. Austin. So tough duty in your first start at a different position.
It is the 3rd touchdown reception of the Florida transfer's career. He goes up over the top, and Jimmy Houston and Boykin with another touchdown throw, all TCU. Brady, are you a sauce or dry rub guy?
I think sauce.
Yeah?
I'll tell you what, though. There's some... Is that brisket?
Oh, yeah. I had
brisket
tacos before the game.
I don't think that's a good idea.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, I think towards the 4th quarter, you might be regretting that decision.
The last 11 plays for TCU, 133 yards and 4 touchdowns.
It's the exact opposite of what you would want in your game plan if you're Stephen F. Austin, but this is exactly what TCU wanted. Gary Patterson talked about it. You know, they won to kind of a tough game last week. Talked about that being their perfect style of game, going into a tough, rowdy environment, going against a more physical team, and kind of showing them that they've really got to step it up a notch. He didn't want to have them lose the game to learn their lesson. They won a tight-fought game.
Well, the most unique voice in sports is back on the air. The one and only Colin Cowherd, now on FS1. Finally, Smart Sports Talk is back. The Herd with Colin Cowherd, weekdays at noon Eastern, only on FS1. Streams live as well on Fox Sports Go. Fred Ford comes into the game at running back for the first time for the Lumberjacks, replacing Josh West. Conk steps into a deep ball, and running behind the defense was Sylvester, but couldn't pull it in. Sylvester went right by Michael Downing, and it was thrown well.
A well-thrown ball. Robert Sylvester has to find a way of bringing this in. As you can see him, he's a burner. He's got some speed. Runs right by Michael Downing. Just can't find the football. But that's a tough catch for any wide receiver to make, that over the shoulder where you got to follow the ball. But he just should have turned his body around to jump up at high point. And those are the plays Stephen F. Austin has to make.
Second down, here is Ford. 23-year-old fifth-year senior. Stopped by Traven Howard, third down.
It's more that downhill runner that they talked about, needed to get him kind of lathered up. You know, it felt like he was the older guy, older man on the team, that they had to get him going a little bit to get him all juiced up. A few carries in the game to really take his full effect.
Dealt with injuries for much of his career. Healthy for this senior campaign, but checks out on 3rd and 7 as West comes back in. They dump off the screen. Lathan read it well and helped angle him out of bounds. Anthony Tejada will get credit for the stop, and it's 4th down.
Yeah, I'd like to see Stephen F. Austin try to take some more chances. I mean, already down 35 points. Try to push the ball more towards the sticks. Get away from your screen game and take some chances here in the first quarter. Excuse me, second quarter, first half.
Busy day for Nick Bruno. And they've learned their lesson. Stay away from Cavante Turpin. It bounces inside the 25 and officially is a punt of 52 yards. All TCU today. Trevon Boykin, their Heisman candidate at quarterback. How about them uniforms today, those camo uniforms? Number 3's looking good. Fox Sports 1 College Football is presented by Geico. There is the 1938 Heisman Trophy won by Davey O'Brien, their national title year. Could there be a future Heisman winner in a TCU uniform right now? Trevon Boykin, 11 of 16, more than 200 yards, and already 3 touchdowns. Still 10 minutes left in the first half.
Yeah, and in order for Boykin to win that award, I think TCU's got to stay in the college football playoff race.
Third running back we've seen in the game, it's Travoris Johnson. And he gets a couple. He's more of their power back at 5'11", 220 out of Houston. And he goes into a quad formation at the top. They spread out the offensive line and throw it to Johnson, who drops it with a flag down. Boy, they're not holding anything back, are they?
No, and then what this does is it forces your opponents in the upcoming weeks to have to practice this and deal with some of these exotic plays that we're not going to see throughout the course of a game, or at least not very often.
Personal foul, chop block, number 65 and number 55 with a high-low combination. Half the distance to the goal, still second down.
You just heard our head official talk about it. Can't go high-low on a defensive player. You're going to see center Joey Hunt and the right guard, number 65, Brady Foltz.
Yeah.
Go high-low. Boykin knows right away.
First penalty on TCU today, which is a good sign after that 5 false starts in Minneapolis last week. Second down and 20. Boykin, good feet, zips one too tall for Nixon. This is an interesting point you made about showing all the things they are here, because conventional wisdom would say, why show your hand, before you get into the bulk of your conference schedule? But I guess the other way to look at that, like you mentioned, is you're forcing your opponent to spend more time on things that they're not going to need.
Yeah, and that's when you do it. You do those exotic plays when you're up 35 points on an FCS opponent. There's only so many hours in a week when a team is able to prepare, and when it gets later on in the season, say maybe Baylor, for example, at the end of the season, they had a lot to prepare for versus this TCU offense.
Perfectly thrown. It's Nixon. Bounce it outside, and Sean Nixon across the 40. On 3rd and 20, they get 28 to move the chains.
And this is the sort of thing that Sonny Cumbie talked about. He wanted to see what Trevon Boykin was working through his progressions, hitting more of those throws in the middle of the field. He missed Sean Nixon before the previous play, and he comes right back. Nixon coming from the other side of the field for the conversion.
From the 41 now, outside to Listenby. And a good open field tackle made by Tyron Mitchell. Stephen F. Austin traveled 4 corners with Ippolito Corporon out with an injury. One of them has been injured, Trey Rosser. So they're dealing right now with a couple of redshirt freshmen in addition to the 5th-year senior Freeman as their 3 corners.
Yeah, very inexperienced group. Not a lot of depth there at the cornerback position. For the safeties, they're pretty solid. Zach Starnes, number 6, leading the way there. Number 14, Patrick Martin.
Here's Dotson. Don't make that Nixon. Near midfield. But boy, 3 corners as you try to keep up with TCU's offense.
I mean, and they've got to be out in the field for 80 to 100 plays. And that's why you got to have depth when you're going against spread offenses. Stephen F. Austin's rotating out their defensive line. That's the other place you really need depth, in particular for a pass rush. Those big boys up front get tired going up against a fast-paced offense that's throwing the football all the time.
Wildcat here, the big back, Johnson.
Boykin at the top of your screen.
Johnson downhill, slipped the tackle and got a first down. Now, Jamal Allen had a chance to bring him down but couldn't. Instead, Jermod Williams did after a run of 10. Trey Rosser, who just came out of the TCU tunnel, so up there using their medical facilities to get some tests done, you would assume.
It's pretty typical anytime you see an injury like that, the opposing team allowing that to take place. Not uncommon. Probably more so when you're up by 35 points.
Yeah. Kyle Hicks, tackled by Justin Owens.
You're starting to see a lot of true freshmen work into the game. Number 14, Jarrison Stewart, in the slot, middle of your screen.
Boykin steps out of pressure. And every TCU fan and all the coaches hold their breath on a play like that.
Yeah, and the way the injuries have gone so far for TCU this year, you got to ask yourself the question, how much longer will Trevon Boykin be in the game? As much as you want to get him into a rhythm and put up a ton of points and get him those stats to put him in contention for the Heisman, you got to be careful too.
Horned Frogs had a 3-and-out to start the game. They've converted 5 third downs in a row since then. And look at a 3rd down and 7 against a 4-man rush. Boykin double clutches, scans the field and zips one incomplete. In search of Jarrison Stewart, Justin Owens jarred it loose, and it's 4th down.
And just a little late working back through his progression there. Had Jarrison Stewart earlier in that window. Boykin needed to get off his first read, number 3, Sean Nixon sooner. Kind of put it where he had to, but Justin Owens getting the PBU.
Ethan Perry. A little too much on that. And it will come out to the 20.
Colby Listenby catching everything.
Yeah, right. Good speed to get under it. Man, that's good speed. Let's check in with Chris Button for an injury update.
Well, I talked to the Stephen F. Austin medical staff. Trey Rosser out here on the sidelines with a right elbow injury. They said they think everything's okay, so they're going to hold it until halftime. Look at those x-rays more during half to see if he's able to go in the second half.
All right, Chris. So that is a guy who is making his first career start today because Hippolito Corporon was out with an injury himself. So Clint Conk's team dealing with the injury bug as well. That's his son, Zach Conk, who started his career at UTSA and transferred in last year when Clint Conk took over the program after spending the previous decade and a half at Central Arkansas. Conk was the newcomer of the year in the Southland in his first season. The unquestioned leader of this offense here in his second season in the program. We'll start this drive with a pass play and gets tripped up. Credit for the sack there, and Curry. It'll be second down. But in talking with Clint Conk, you can just hear he doesn't want to, heap too much praise on his son, but his voice tells you what he thinks about the kid.
Yeah, and he won't say it, but offensive coordinator Matt Kubik will. He said, look, Zach Conk gives us a chance to win every game. He's the ultimate competitor. See, last week he saw a lot of different pressure looks and was getting knocked around a little bit. He's got a bit of a bum knee. He's working through today. But he didn't want to tell anyone. He didn't tell the media or anyone coming into this game this week because he was so excited to play against the number 3 team in the country.
Red Ford makes a nice cut on second down. It'll be 3rd and 7. So, Conk was at UTSA. The offensive coordinator left. The quarterback's coach left. His recruiting coordinator left. And they started having the conversation, Zach and his dad did. And he said there were some long conversations about it. And Coach Conk said, if this is going to happen, you're going to have to be far and away the best guy, because if it's anywhere close, people are going to think the only reason you're the guy is because you're my son.
And it was, when you look at those two in practice going back to when he first got to Stephen F. Austin, and the pivotal point was versus Central Arkansas. In that particular game, they really felt like they could have won had Zach Conk not split the refs.
Takes another sack. This one, Tipa Galliai getting his first of the season. And Conk upset with the protection on that possession. 4th down.
That's going to be tough. Going back to that last game we were talking about versus Central Arkansas, he threw for 322 yards, 1 TD, and at that point, they kind of basically made the decision to make Zach the permanent starter. And look at his season a year ago, completed 65% of his passes, 2,700 yards, 15 TDs, and he rushed for 13 TDs. So the epitome of a dual threat QB.
You saw some of the competitive juices flowing there after that sack. His dad said they're exactly alike in that respect. Just normally, Zach is a little more laid back about that competitive nature. Not there, though. Been a frustrating first half. Time for a game break, Jenny.
I've got faith. Still early in that game. We had them last week. I mean, if UVA gets behind, it's just they struggle really being able to keep up.
Starter still out there for TCU, and that ball was read well by Starnes. He didn't get the pick, but his teammate did. Starnes got his hands on it, and Marlon Walls picks up the interception. Read perfectly.
Yeah, Zach Starnes broke on that ball immediately. Trevon Boykin kind of stared down Ty Slanine in the slot, and Starnes with the assist.
That's right.
Like he set that.
That's something off film studies.
Yeah, and I think so. I think with a lot of the dropbacks of the quick game for TCU, Trevon Boykin basically reads one side of the field, and once he turns the throw, the ball's coming out, and he's not going to hold on to it. And I think if you're playing off coverage and you see a quarterback start to frame up his throw initially right away, that's usually when you're coached to break. Starnes, again, the veteran in that secondary, did a nice job just reading Boykin's eyes.
So good field position for the Lumberjacks from the 26. They pumped the short route, and man, it's a jailbreak. Conk goes down. Aaron Curry with another sack. 2nd and long.
And I think this is where the frustration comes from Zach Conk, trying to pump the screen and throw downfield and take a shot, but just doesn't have enough time. Aaron Curry busting through the pass protection, and TCU's not even bringing any pressure. That's what's so frustrating about it as a quarterback, is when you're only getting a 4-man rush and they're still getting to you, you'd think that you've got an extra man up front, those 5 offensive linemen. Someone should be able to help out. There shouldn't be a free guy running through.
4 sacks in this first half of the TCU defense. Conk under pressure again. Got rid of it behind Sylvester. There is a flag down in the backfield.
Number 94, Josh Caraway again coming hard off the edge.
Personal foul, roughing the passer. Number 94, defense, 15-yard penalty. Matt, first down.
Taking a beating.
Yeah, as you see Caraway come around the edge well after the ball was thrown. And it's the right call by the head official there, Scott Campbell.
This is behind a veteran offensive line. 120 combined starts coming into this game for an O-line that includes 4 seniors. And they've not been able to hold that TCU front out of the backfield. Fred Ford on first down. Terrell Latham with a stop, 2nd and 7.
We talked about the banged up knee of Zach Conk as he feels like he's starting to feel the hits. They're mounting up. It's a little gimpy right now, but such a tough player. Trying to fight through all he can. I mean, he knows this is a big stage. There's some NFL scouts here checking out this TCU team. And obviously we talked about some of the linemen for Stephen F. Austin. He wants to showcase what he's capable of doing.
He's certainly proven himself to be tough. 2nd down and 7. Here's Ford. Head in the hole by Traven Howard. Able to finish Ford, set up 3rd down and short, which we've not said too many times today for the Lumberjacks.
Yeah, and credit Fred Ford, just a tough run there at Kirbyville High School, Kirbyville, Texas. I think that bodes well for the Stephen F. Austin offense. They talked about not running laterally. They didn't want to compete with TCU trying to outmatch their speed. They want to be more downhill in their running game.
Timeout, Stephen F. Austin. 2nd of the half, 30-second timeout.
So 1 timeout left for Stephen F. Austin. With 2:15 left in this half, let's check into Los Angeles with Rob Stone.
Coming up on the State Farm halftime, Jim Harbaugh hunts win #1 at Michigan. #1 ranked Ohio State hosts Hawaii. Wait until you see the Rainbow Warriors uniforms. Plus =9 Notre Dame, they look to avoid the road upset at Virginia. Joe Brady, back to you.
Heard that those unis were sweet, first of all. Second of all, he got the purple memo. He had a purple pocket square going.
It's that time of year. Apparently everyone's wearing purple.
It's in.
Playing Purple Rain before the game started today. That was kind of odd for a pump-up music, or
yeah,
it's weird to hear that on your playlist.
Yeah, you know, figured it fit today if there was ever going to be a time. So TCU with a comfortable 35-0 lead, looking to get to 2-0 after that 23-17 win at Minnesota last Thursday. And a game, like you mentioned, Gary Patterson said was the perfect game. They got tested on the road and had to grind out a victory that paid dividends down the road.
He wanted a close game because he wanted his team to get a little bit scared, not get too full of themselves with all the people praising them and their expectations for what this team's capable of.
Here's West out of the backfield on 3rd and short. That ball comes out, and Stephen F. Austin is back on it, 4th down.
Like Aaron Thomas jumped on that. Zach Conk's favorite wide receiver. West had some room to work, makes a nice little cut, but typically when a running back's going down to the ground, it ends up being on his way down that the ball ends up coming out. It's hard to secure the football. They want to use that arm as cushion.
Second red zone trip today for the Lumberjacks, trying to capitalize for the first time. Conk on the roll. Running out of time, throwing an interception into the hands of Michael Downing. First pick of his career. TCU takes over at the 10.
Well, look, it's 4th down, so that ball was going to be turned over whether they converted or not. Zach Conk just not as confident, as mobile as he was a week ago when he was a little bit healthier. Anytime you're coming off a bum knee like that, you don't feel quite as confident in your running ability. I mean, Zach Conk would have turned that up, taking a shot at the end of the play. Traven Howard Conk again, I mean, trying to take a shot. That's all you can do in a game like this. You just never really want to throw back in across your body, but on 4th down, you got to take a chance. You're down 35 points.
Here's an opportunity here for TCU to work situationally. If they choose to, they start with a bowling ball. Johnson, 5'11", 220. Strong run into the arms of George Stone. Coming up when we finish this half, it's the State Farm halftime. Rob Stone and the guys back in Los Angeles.
The run game wanted to be a focal point for this particular game for TCU's offense. They weren't able to really seal the victory last week. Had to put their defense back out on the field versus Minnesota to close the game.
Johnson again. Pretty good quickness for a guy his size.
Like a late hit at the end, but he's got great quickness. Again, not the type of lateral runner. He's going to put his foot in the ground and get north and south. But you got to credit Big V, big number 74 left tackle there for sealing the edge and allowing him to get outside.
Not even going to try it.
Halapulavati Vaitai. Sounds like it's like a drink almost or something. You're sitting on the beach.
Did have one of those little umbrellas in it.
Not my style, but maybe you.
I didn't say I was having a Vaitai. So big first half for Gary Patterson and this TCU squad. Similar to what they did last year against Texas Tech in late October. They put up 37 in the first half, topped that in the second, and set a school record with 82. A blowout win to their Big 12 opponent. So this first half winds to a close after a sloppy first couple of minutes. They smooth things out, doing what folks figured they'd do. 35-0 TCU. Right now we send you to Rob Stone in Los Angeles.
Yes, Joe, order.
Football is presented by Geico with a 35-0 lead. TCU takes the field again, ready for the second half against Stephen F. Austin. Bit of a sloppy start. At least the first couple minutes of the game didn't necessarily look like the number 3 team in the country playing an FCS opponent, but they cleaned things up in big lead going into the second half. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, Chris Button again in a moment. We know all about this TCU offense, right? One of the top offenses in the country. Return 10 starters. But how about the defense, which is having to replace already several big-time guys from last year, now dealing with injuries, but impressive today.
Oh, very impressive. I mean, there's a lot of pressure put on Terrell Lathan, Chris Bradley, Aaron Curry, Josh Caraway. The guys up front really creating all the pressure today. And that's a luxury for TCU, to not have to bring pressure, be able to rush just 4 guys and still get home to the quarterback. It's been vital, and that's been the key reason right now why TCU's been able to pretty much put this game away in the first half.
They held Stephen F. Austin to about a yard per play. 37 plays for a total of 39 yards.
And how about this? 11 completions for quarterback Zach Conk, 9 yards.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that before?
No.
Seen that?
No.
I've never seen that before. It's just a suffocating defense all the way around. Really the performance Gary Patterson was hoping for in this game, in this matchup.
Had to replace 6 of their top 7 tacklers from what was the Big 12's best defense last year. And it's easy to forget that Gary Patterson's programs typically are known for their defense.
Yeah. And they have that slogan this year. Gary Patterson has one every year. And this year he said, prove them right. He said the year before, prove them wrong. Now it's proving right, proving all the people who believe this team can be a college football playoff team. Prove them all right with your play.
Horned Frogs will get it at the 35 to begin half number 2. That one not even close to getting into the end zone. And the first kick we've seen today from Caleb Llewellyn, redshirt freshman, handling the kickoff duties of Mason Jewell.
Kickoff out of bounds. By rule, will be placed on the 35-yard line. First down.
Let's check in with Chris Budden.
Joe, I talked to TCU's head coach Gary Patterson, and the first thing he said to me, we had no energy in those first few minutes. So the always perfectionist Coach Patterson said he was a little bit more pleased as the game went on. He said the key there was they had to contain Zach Conk. That's why they were able to get down the field on that first drive. He said once we did that, we were able to take the wind out of their sails and start to control this game. As for Stephen F. Austin, Clint Conk told me the first thing that they have to do is score when they get in the red zone, because he just does not have confidence in their field goal kicker. He said down 35-0 at half. I told my team, you just have to believe in your teammates and stick to the fundamentals.
All right, Chris, great stuff. They go to Josh Dotson in the first play of the second half. This game was scoreless the first time Stephen F. Austin moved the ball into the TCU red zone, but unable to come up with any points. Moved it into the red zone late in the first half as well. Couldn't score then either.
Yeah, they haven't really been able to create any momentum on their side when they've had their opportunities down in the red zone. And that's key. If you're an underdog and you're coming into an away stadium, you've got to start off fast. And you got to do something early to really make this top-ranked team nervous. As you see Trevon Boykin put on some moves and pick up a couple yards as he scrambles out of bounds.
Pushed out by Justin Owens, who has a team-high 5 tackles for the Lumberjacks. Lance Schuyler helped run him out as well. 3rd down and 2 on TCU's first drive of the second half.
Still got Boykin in. They still got it. They're starting wide receiver rotation in. Colby Listenby, who's been so dangerous throughout this game.
They fake the run, throw to Listenby. There he is for a first down.
We go back to Sean Nixon, number 3, being selfless, blocking for Listenby, making that first down possible. Throws the wide receiver quick screen to the outside. I think Gary Patterson should be pretty pleased, besides maybe the first couple minutes how they started this game, with the way his team has responded now in their opener at home.
You wouldn't expect anything else from a head coach, though, right? You got to look at in a 35-0 lead. He goes back to the 2 minutes that he didn't like in his first comments to Chris. Sean Nixon spinning away from Starnes, and Ty Slanina worked hard to get a block on the edge. Second down coming up. Nixon a little bit slow getting up. Gary Patterson looks out.
They've used Sean Nixon in a variety of ways, listed as a running back, but started off the game in the slot. Those little wrinkles that TCU's added to their offense. Got a couple young guys they'd like to mix in. Nixon, one of them. Cavante Turbin, 25. We've seen him. I'm still excited to see number 10, Desmond White, get in the game at Sunford. A local legend here.
He had a career-high 5 catches for 61 yards last week, but they said he was a little bit banged up. As Boykin looks long, wants Listenby again, and it's broken up. That's a heck of a play by Taryn Mitchell, a redshirt freshman from right here in the DFW area, keeping up with Listenby and breaking it up.
Roosevelt High School here in town, and he's fast. He's got the ability to be able to catch up to a somewhat underthrown ball by Boykin. Needs to put that one out a little bit more in front, but still working out the kinks early in the season.
Missed a couple of deep balls last week that were wide open that he normally doesn't. But Sonny Cumbie told us yesterday he also made some throws that he wouldn't have as recently as last year. There's a dart. Josh Dotson spinning free. All the way down to the 15. 33 yards before Patrick Martin makes the tackle, and they hurry to the line of scrimmage.
And that's twice now I've seen Trevon Boykin miss a throw to an open wide receiver, and what does he do? He responds. He comes right back with a strike.
Stretch play into the wide side. It's Kyle Hicks down to the 10. How about this strong arm throw?
And they're going to utilize a little play action fake to get the linebackers to suck up, and in behind comes Josh Dotson. He does the rest.
Sonny Cumbie told us yesterday that the biggest improvement for Boykin over the last year has been his accuracy on those mid-range throws.
And we saw it right there. That's something they worked hard on in the offseason. Those deep dig routes, comebacks, the seams, the post routes. All those things that defenses are going to force him to do because they know Listenby is a deep threat. They know Dotson's a deep threat. They're going to prevent that and make him go the long, hard route.
Oh, the run from Hicks to set up 1st and goal. Zach Starnes with the tackle on the sophomore from Arlington. He missed all of 2013 with a torn ACL. Worked back last year, was buried in the depth chart some, and still part of a deep running back group, but a piece that they'll use.
Somewhat a complete back at 46 rushes, 12 receptions in the limited play last year. He can do it all, but he's stuck behind a very talented back in Aaron Green.
First and goal, they look to throw the fade. Emmanuel Porter goes over the top for the touchdown. Beating Terry Mitchell. There's a flag down.
Pass interference, number 20. Defense. That penalty is declined. Touchdown.
Well, this is big boy ball at the top of your screen. You got the 6'4" Emmanuel Porter just elevating over the 5'10" Darren Mitchell. He's throwing an alley-oop to his power forward. Porter does a nice job of high-pointing the football, then securing the catch as he comes to the ground.
Guy's a specimen, huh? 6'4", 210.
Well, go across their wide receiver roster. They've got plenty of them.
A lot of speed, a lot of athleticism for this TCU squad. Emmanuel Porter with the latest flash of that size and speed and athleticism, and it's 42-0. Fox Sports 1 College Football is presented by Geico. Emmanuel Porter, sophomore from Dallas Lincoln, with the latest touchdown. And we've talked about the shift in offensive philosophy here at TCU. They go from more of a pro-style, defensive-minded club under Gary Patterson to last year opening things up, bringing in Doug Meacham, bringing in Sonny Cumbie, becoming a spread team. Emmanuel Porter would not be at TCU had they not made that change.
You can probably say the same for a lot of the wide receivers on this team. I mean, I think if you're a wide receiver right now in the country, why wouldn't you want to go to a team that's going to have a higher-powered offense? They're going to spread the football around, throw it around the field a lot. You're looking at the Big 12, the Pac-12. I mean, up north, one of the predominant running teams, you're only going to get so many catches a game. If you're running 80 to 100 plays, it's a lot of love to go around with that one football.
Yeah, Porter was headed to either LSU or Texas before those offensive changes here in Fort Worth.
How about this, too? Porter just started playing football as a junior in high school.
Yeah, a lot of raw talent. Day is done, it would appear, for Zach Conk. And the backup, the junior, Hunter Taylor, out of White House, Texas, comes in.
I was talking to offensive coordinator Matt Kubik before the game. I said, what can you tell me about Hunter Taylor? He goes, well, he's going to get the ball out quick. He's got great anticipation. I mean, this is a kid who in high school finished 4th in the country in passing. He threw 9 touchdown passes in one game. So he's going to throw it around. He doesn't necessarily know if it's always going to be to the right team, but he's going to take some shots.
He'll hand it off on first down to Fred Ford, who's got a gain of 9. You ever throw for 700 yards and lose like that kid in Pennsylvania last night?
No, I wish I had the opportunity to. And nowadays, in the spread era, any statistical records are just going to be shattered.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't hold a breath to any of these records as fast as they play now.
107-90 was the score of that game last night. It was a first down run. That's checking with Chris Button for an update on Zach Conk.
He will not play in this second half. He dinged up that already injured knee at the end of the first half. They say right now it's more precautionary than anything.
All right. And you knew coming into the game, Brady, that he was dealing with some things with that knee.
Yeah, what I noticed in warm-ups was he was wearing an additional knee brace, something that he hadn't done before. When I talked to his father, Clint Conk, the head coach, he said, look, he didn't want to tell anyone about it. He knew what kind of stage he was about to be on, and he wanted to try to be tough and play through it. But at this point, the pass rush of TCU would be putting their season in jeopardy with all the hits that he's sustained and taken in this game.
First target today to Aaron Thomas, who was defended by Anthony Tejada. Couldn't get any room there. Second down and 10. Thomas, a 5th-year senior from Odessa, Texas, who's a 2-time all-conference player, nearing 2,000 yards in his career, but he's been shut down by Tejada so far today.
And oddly enough, he leads the team in career yards, but at no point in any season has he led the team in yards in the season.
Consistency, I guess. Forward for a couple. Third down. This is a program in Stephen F. Austin that won 8 games last year. The Clint Conk's first season went to the playoffs. The 5-win improvement from the year before. High expectations again for them. They were picked by the conference sports information directors to finish second in the Southland this year. But in danger of falling to an 0-2 start. On third down, Taylor throws one right to Denzel Johnson, and he'll take it back. That's a touchdown with a flag down in the original backfield.
This might be a roughing the passer on number 92, Bryson Henderson. We talked about Hunter Taylor going to take some chances. He's going to take some shots when he gets them. That time he had to get the ball out quick.
Holding, number 72, offense. That penalty declined. Touchdown.
Instead, it's a hold, and Denzel Johnson with the touchdown.
Yeah, hold on Travis Wiggins, so looks like Bryson Henderson's shot was just in time. Watch number 30, Denzel Johnson. He just sits out right in the hook to curl area where Taylor was trying to work, and it's hard to not catch that one. Hit him right between the 3 and the 0.
I think you got a pretty good scouting report. Not afraid to step into it and wing it, but
no, he's going to. And again, I mean, this is the pressure of the TCU defensive line that forces the ball to come out maybe before it should have, or not really give a clean look to our quarterback, creating so much pressure. There's only 4 guys.
Yeah,
not blitzing a lot.
Yeah, it's not to knock on Taylor. Came out there slinging it, but Johnson stepped in front of it, took it back for a touchdown, and TCU continues to roll, leading 49-0. There's a horse taking a selfie, and there's your nightmare for tonight.
I think TCU is putting this one to bed, and that's right from the horse's mouth.
Oh, my gosh, you're killing it.
Well, they play SMU next week.
Don't take the mask off. Oh, my gosh, no. It's ruined for everybody.
Put it back on, man.
Robert Sylvester back to return this one from Oberkron. Start at the 25-yard line. It appears that Trevon Boykin may be finished for today. Whether or not he is, never a bad time to see some highlights of him.
He finished the day 18 of 27, 285 yards, 4 touchdown passes. Pretty solid day for Trevon Boykin. I think he was working on a few things out there. Obviously, the fade passes, throwing up some alley-oops to his big, tall wide receivers. Again, working on some of those more intermediate routes, working through more of his reads and progressions. You can see a little bit today, whereas last year he might look to one guy and then look to run, or maybe 1 or 2 guys and run. You got to a second, third, and sometimes even 4th read in the progression.
Lauren Easley, true freshman running back, with his first career carry, goes for a couple of yards. Montrell Wilson, Terrell Lathan combined in the stop. And again, we're not positive that Boykin is done, but over there with the helmet off. Sit down with Meacham in a 49-0 game. It would make sense.
Yeah, nothing really to win by putting him in besides capping off some of those numbers. But I'm sure with this offense, they're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that throughout the season.
Hunter Taylor, meanwhile, his second drive in a quarterback for the Lumberjacks. Zip it outside to Judah Jones, a Kansas State transfer who played in this stadium last year. The game TCU won big. Denzel Johnson with the tackle, 3rd down.
Another good play by Denzel Johnson. These reps are invaluable. This is something that you just can't replicate in practice. The live reps and game experience will only benefit these guys down the road. So Gary Patterson's keeping primarily the majority of his first-string guys in the game right now.
Yeah, what an opportunity for him with such a young defense, so many new pieces having to work in, guys changing positions. They run it on 3rd down, and there's one guy that's changed the position. Traven Howard having a great game, moving down from safety to linebacker.
Yeah, and Terrell Lathan as well in on that play. Traven Howard's going to come off the edge along with Terrell Lathan. There's just one too many guys. Probably not the call you'd want on 3rd and 5. You want to check the football around a little bit.
You know what time it is? It's Turpin time. Back to return this punt. Average about 25 yards per return in the first half as a couple of TCU backups loosen up. Both Bram Kohlhausen and Foster Sawyer. Line drive, spiraling kick. They keep it away from Turpin. Yeah, TCU's offense gets ready to take the field on the other side of this break. The home opener in Fort Worth. It's been a positive one for the Horned Frogs, up 49-0. It's amazing what can happen with a 12-1 season, as good of a season as Trevon Boykin had. He's on every preview cover. He's throwing out first pitches at Major League Baseball games. That was down in Arlington in July. He's become a star, become the face of this program. It's your favorite in the Big 12, and he's replaced right now. Bram Kohlhausen comes in, and Boykin's day is finished. What'd you think of him today?
You know, I think I saw some things he still can improve on, but overall a pretty solid day. He wasn't put in quite as many precarious situations as he was versus Minnesota. Had to use his legs quite a bit, had to take some shots and play tough. Last week versus Minnesota, this week, a little easier day for him throwing in the pocket.
Well, Bram Kohlhausen comes in, tries to show what he can do, pumps outside, goes over the middle to Tice Lanina, who's into Stephen F. Austin territory. It's a 27-yard completion to begin Kohlhausen's time.
Slanina out of East Bernard High School, East Bernard, Texas, a junior. He's dependable. He's a solid wide receiver. Talking to the coaching staff, they really liked his ability to play in the slot. Has great hands and just a solid route runner. He was always going to do the right thing and be in the right place.
Back-to-back throws for Kohlhausen, looking long, underthrows it. Porter goes up and takes it away. First down and goal, TCU. Already jumped over the top of a defender for a touchdown. Now he gets one for 39.
Well, the transfer from L.A. Harbor College, Kohlhausen's able to find that matchup versus Taryn Mitchell that Trevon Boykin was able to utilize. Don't be surprised if he doesn't throw up another fade to Porter in the corner of the end zone if they don't run this football in.
Senior out of Houston, Texas, 2 for 2 to start his day and his season. Aaron Hicks, straight downhill for the touchdown. Kyle Hicks, beg your pardon, into the end zone. And it is now 55-0.
This offense is just a machine, regardless of who they put in. Doesn't matter if it's Kohlhausen or even Foster Sawyer we might see at the end of this game, but when you've got wide receivers who can elevate and bring in balls like that, it doesn't matter. Well, you almost could just have the punter go out there and punt one out there to him.
So Hicks with a touchdown, taking advantage of a long reception for Emmanuel Porter. Look at that elevation. He's already 6'4". It's not even fair. And this is how the drive finished. 56-0. Bram Kohlhausen completes a couple of balls on his opening drive. 3 plays, 67 yards, and a Kyle Hicks touchdown run. Different quarterbacks, same result for TCU. Kohlhausen, a guy who coming out of high school was actually a more highly touted, more highly ranked quarterback than Trevon Boykin.
As well as actually tight end, number 84, Dominic Burka.
Yeah.
Both rated higher coming out of high school, but Boykin now the star.
Yeah, so Boykin, the guy who's the Heisman candidate, was the 3rd highest ranked quarterback on this roster now, coming out of high school in that class. When we finish, today El Central showdown, the Tigers and the Red Hot Indians, who somehow have climbed into the fringes of the wild card race. 14-6 in their last 20 games. You can only see that game right here on FS1. Coverage starts when we finish.
Tribe time now, baby.
Okay,
my
Mr.
Cleveland
Ohio.
Indians. They're in contention. It's been a long time since the mid-90s. Kenny Lofton, Albert Bell. I remember some
The
of those
glory
names.
days.
Yeah. Just couldn't beat the Braves.
Drive starts from the 25. And a nice throw into the soft spot. from Hunter Taylor. First reception for Cole Carter, sophomore out of Allen, Texas. Mitchell pulling it. And smartly going down. Or Taylor, after 7 yards, and it'll be second down and about 3.
Very different style quarterback compared to Zach Conk. Much smaller, quicker release. Scatty when he runs, not quite as powerful, more of the downhill runner that Zach Conk is. Kind of adds a different dimension to this offense.
Taylor throwing dangerously incomplete. Time now for a game break. Jenny Taft.
Thanks, Joe. More from number 9, Notre Dame visiting Virginia. The Irish offense struggled getting traction in the first half. Malik Zaire held to only 38 yards passing, but Zaire airs one out to Will Fuller for the 59-yard score. The Irish up 19-14 in the third. Joe Brady, back to you guys.
That looked a little more like it.
Yeah, look, it's their first road game of the year. I think Zaire's still trying to settle into that full-time quarterback position.
Oh, tipped and almost intercepted. Boy, if there's been one breakout performer today for TCU, you'd have to peg Denzel Johnson as that guy.
Definitely. I mean, when you watch the way he's played this week compared to last week, I mean, so much more decisive, breaking on the football in the pass game, breaking up passes, getting his hands on the football, in the run game, filling his gap, which is such an essential part of this defense, especially at his strong safety position. So night and day from last week.
5 tackles, couple of pass breakups, and a pick 6. Devontae Turpin back for this punt. Nick Bruno, who's averaged close to 50 yards a pop. That one's anchored away from Turpin and out of bounds. 5:08 left in this third quarter. Number 3 team in the country, TCU, with a 56-0 lead. Let's look around the rest of the top 10. How about the scare Jacksonville State put into Auburn?
Yeah, Auburn not living up to the hype of a lot of the preseason pundits. Jeremy Johnson really hasn't ascended the way they thought he would coming out of the spring and in training camp at the quarterback position. Will Muschamp now trying to overhaul that defense. He's got some talent. Defensive end Carl Lawson, cornerback Jonathan Jones, 2 NFL-style players. So they should be doing more, especially versus Jacksonville State. But
yeah,
the big ones tonight, Michigan State versus Oregon. Whoever loses that game most likely is out of the college football playoff contention.
Dolores Johnson on first down. Thrown down by Starnes after 13 yards and a first down. Another big game, Oklahoma and Tennessee.
Travoris Johnson puts his foot in the ground, gets upfield. Good blocking by the TCU offensive line to get him to second level. Not a speed demon, but very efficient with his footwork and obviously takes care of the football. Not a fumbler, as running backs coach Curtis Looper would say.
Here's Turpin. That Oklahoma-Tennessee game not big just for Oklahoma, but really for the perception nationally of the Big 12, because the non-conference slates for Big 12 teams don't provide many opportunities to make statements.
No, this is one of those only instances where Oklahoma's chosen to go on the road, play at Neyland Stadium with 100,000 people. It's going to be a tough matchup. Baker Mayfield now at quarterback, and they brought in Lincoln Riley to run the air raid offense. There's still going to be some kinks they're going to be trying to work out against a tough Tennessee team. Josh Dobbs at quarterback, Jalen Hurd. Tough running attack to go against.
Jarrison Stewart with it out for a first down. Price Miller makes the tackle.
Graham Kohlhausen has been very efficient on this drive. A senior. Talked about his journey. He initially started at Houston, transferred to LA Harbor College, found his way now to TCU.
Flag down as Johnson gets 4.
Personal foul. Chop block, number 72 and 58. The high-low combination block. Enforcement from the spot of the foul. First down.
Bobby Thompson and Patrick Morris.
Which isn't always easy to do. That's your left guard and right guard.
Yeah.
There should be a guy in between them. Austin Schultman. So somehow they're able to high-low a guy, even though the center's in between them. Usually it's a center guard or guard tackle combination.
First down and 22 as a result. Kohlhausen will try and get some of it back. Feeling the pressure, got rid of it into traffic. And it was somehow pulled in by Jalen Austin. Freshman from Grand Prairie, South Grand Prairie High School with his first career catch.
Great pocket awareness by Graham Kohlhausen. One of his strengths, he's not a runner, but he's got the ability to feel that rush coming from behind and when to escape just enough to get the ball out. Look at Zach Starnes and another deep defensive back for Stephen F. Austin. There's a big collision as about 5 people were going for that football.
Demonjay Freeman is the other player down.
We talk about the quarterback situation behind Trevon Boykin, who's a senior, will be probably done after this year. Done after this year, going to the NFL. As far as how talented he is, but you got Bram Kohlhausen, Foster Sawyer, but there's another guy, Kenny Hill Jr., the transfer from Texas A&M. Let me see him is Hill Jr., number 7. A very successful career last year for A&M, but unfortunately got benched. Threw for 2,600 yards, 23 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions. Head coach Kevin Sumlin decided to go with Kyle Allen instead, and now Kyle Allen's kind of battling it out with Kyler Murray. So maybe better off that Kenny Hill left. He finds himself as possibly the heir apparent. They've got another big recruit from San Angelo, Texas, and Brennan Wooten. Had a big game last night for San Angelo. 4 touchdown passes, 2 rushing touchdowns, 400 yards passing. So there'll be some competition next year after Boykin.
Bram Kohlhausen has completed all 5 of his passes. On his 6th, he's got a drop from Jalen Austin, and it'll be 3rd down. Remember last year after that opener when Texas A&M went into South Carolina and won? I mean, he was topping every really early Heisman list that there was.
I think they called him Kenny Trill.
Kenny Trill.
Kenny Trill is the nickname he was donned with.
Yeah.
The second coming of what was Johnny Football, but again, he went through a couple rough patches and maybe some off-the-field issues, and Kevin Sumlin was done with it, ready to move on.
Can't bench a guy whose nickname is Trill.
Well, apparently you can.
Yeah, I guess so. Kohlhausen throwing deep but incomplete. Sailing that one over the head of Preston Miller.
So far, they say Kenny Hill's done a nice job of adapting to the TCU culture here, working his tail off in the weight room, trying to be a leader, because all he can do right now is be the scout team QB, which is pretty humbling. Going from being in the national spotlight and all of a sudden benched and then transferring and having to sit out a year due to NCAA transfer rules.
Judah Jones back to return this punt from the 5. The Kansas State transfer gets swallowed up and drilled inside the 5. Paul Whitmill makes the tackle on special teams, and Stephen F. Austin back into its own end.
This is what you call the FCS versus FBS. That B might stand for bigger.
Oh.
It actually doesn't, but
no,
you get the point.
Yeah.
Whitmill just all up in Judah Jones' face.
FBS'd him. Two and a half left in this 3rd quarter. And Hunter Taylor back out there running quarterback. On the roll with his eyes downfield. We'll throw it over the head of Braxton Bearden. 2nd down.
Well, they're not holding anything back in the playbook. You're dropping back, you're booting 8 yards deep in your own end zone, but they got faith in Hunter Taylor, and they obviously want to get him some valuable reps in this offense.
There's Montrell Wilson. You saw Ty Summers a second ago. Starting linebackers still in the game for TCU. There's one of them in Summers. But it shows you where this team is at right now, especially at that position, where in a 56-0 game, this is still valuable time for those guys.
And TCU's defense was incredibly effective last year because of really Paul Dawson and Marcus Mallett. Those are the guys whose eligibility has expired and since moved on. And they really essentially make up the rest of this defensive front for TCU as far as filling the gaps in the running game and forcing opposing quarterbacks to have to beat him with their arm. So now that those two guys have to deal with so much youth, it's difficult.
Throw on the wheel, incomplete. Entering this season, TCU is the only school in the country with no career starts at the linebacker position.
We talked about it earlier. For 2 weeks in a row now, Gary Patterson's got to start 2 true freshmen. One of those guys is number 20, Montrell Wilson. And he's a bit undersized. That was one of the questions Gary Patterson has, is if he can make it through an entire season because it's so physical. He's 6'3", 208 pounds, looks more like a safety than necessarily a linebacker. He still needs to spend some time in the weight room, put on some of that muscle mass to help protect him.
He is a converted safety. Gary Patterson, in his 15 years here at TCU, had never had a freshman, as that ball hit one of the gunners in the helmet. It would be spotted back where it hit him. But he had never had a freshman, a true freshman, make a start at linebacker. He's now had 2 in the first 2 weeks of this season. He had Mike Freeze last week. He's away from the team now on a personal leave of absence. And now Montrell Wilson this week.
Which is first touching at the 40-yard line. That's where ball, first down.
Well, tonight, our full day of college football caps off. It's Kevin Hogan and Stanford opening its home schedule against Justin Holman in Central Florida. Coverage starts at 10:30 Eastern on Fox Sports 1. It's sponsored by Geico.
Wondering if Stanford can rebound after the loss to Northwestern. The Big 12 really not a great start to the college football season. Washington State also losing. SEC went 12-1. What a difference that was from last season, the way the Pac-12 finished in the bowl season. The SEC West, one of the best divisions in college football, really struggled.
Preston Miller with a catch. On the offensive side, Gary Patterson has started to a little bit deeper onto the depth chart. Johnson gets a first down. The ball on the ground to start the play.
Yeah, look at that lucky bounce though, right back to him. I mean, they've been unlucky in the injury department this season, but apparently so far dropping the football, they've fortunate enough that the football gods have blessed them with it bouncing right back to him.
Closing moments of this third quarter. Bram Kohlhausen. Now Johnson. Stop made by Justin Owens. And that will do it for this third quarter. We'll switch ends and play 15 more minutes here at Fort Worth. The number 3 team in the country, TCU, has dominated. Maybe needed some style points today, and done all they can to get them. All over Stephen F. Austin. Onto the floor. Fox Sports 1 College Football is presented by Geico. And back in Fort Worth for the fourth quarter. Number 3 team in the country, TCU, with a convincing 56-0 lead against Stephen F. Austin. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, Chris Button, and these guys.
Are those overalls?
Yep.
Might be the ugliest ones I've ever seen.
They're purple.
I think jean color could get worse, but apparently that outdoes it.
Yeah. DeMorris Johnson bounce into the outside. Big-bodied running back gets going downhill, hard to stop. First down inside the 20.
Yeah, nice job by number 14, Jerison Stewart. Excuse me, number 15, Jalen Austin, laying a block on the outside, opening him up.
It was something that they were not thrilled with last week at Minnesota. The effort blocking on the outside. Important part of any spread team's offense. First down from the 16. Kohlhausen off play action. Over the middle and caught for a touchdown. Well, you mentioned his block on the last play. Now he pays it off with a touchdown, the first of his career.
Yeah, 4-star recruit out of South Grand Prairie High School in Grand Prairie, Texas. A tremendous grab. Kohlhausen put that ball behind him. It's tough for any wide receiver to adjust back behind him on a post route like that, but Jalen Austin bringing it in. You can tell why they're so excited about this young man. Good speed, fluid through his routes. Really high on him.
As if they needed another guy to be high on.
They could donate some to people.
Kohlhausen threw it behind him, but the freshman Austin went up and got it. Just across the street from campus is Dutch's, named after Dutch Myers. The program's winningest head coach before Gary Patterson came along. He's here from the mid-30s to the early 50s. A couple of national titles.
Coached the great Sammy Baugh, slinging Sammy Baugh. The indoor field or center is named after here in TCU.
Looked like Barry Allen's kind of restaurant, our stat guy.
Yeah, he loves a good burger. Some ribs.
He gave us the thumbs up. Has the Barry seal of approval.
The Old South Pancake House, dude, that was his other recommendation for those in Fort Worth for looking for a good breakfast spot.
My favorite breakfast spot, and the only one I've tried, is the Omni Hotel Breakfast Buffet, where you can just lose your mind and eat as much as you want for like $19.99.
Everything's bigger here in Texas.
Yep. Now getting a chance to kick it here is Jonathan Song, a freshman from All Saints here in Fort Worth, and Robert Sylvester bringing it out. Sylvester fighting hard to the 25, and that's where Stephen F. Austin will have it as we take a look at the Nissan Heisman Watch. We preface this by saying, Kenny Hill, after a week last year, was the front runner, but what about now?
Yeah, it's early. I think Boykin, obviously, with what he's done the past 2 weeks, and Cody Kessler as well. Malik Zaire looks like he got hurt versus Virginia and Charlottesville, carted off. Could be in question. Connor Cook, obviously a big game tonight, but Braxton Miller, we thought it could be J.T. Baird or Cardell Jones or Ezekiel Elliott, but after watching that game versus Virginia Tech, they're going to find whatever ways they can to get him the football, whether in the Wildcat, playing quarterback, catching the ball as a wide receiver, or really running the ball as a running back. So it looks like he's going to be in contention.
Lauren Easley breaking free. The true freshman's on the run. They will not catch him. Touchdown from 75 yards.
Easily a track athlete in high school. Utilized that track speed there. The offensive line for Stephen F. Austin does a nice job providing the hole and really just missed tackles. Paul Whitmill and the rest of the TCU defense, but he's a bigger back. He's not necessarily the smallest guy, but showed some explosion there.
I mentioned Barry Allen a second ago. He gives us a great note that on their previous 52 plays, they had 79 total yards. They get 75 on that one with the freshman Easley. Fox Sports 1 College Football is presented by Geico, and it's back after this. Huddle up with college football experts in live web chats all season long. A new guest every week. The Edward Jones College Football Huddle on foxsports.com. So the Lumberjacks on the board, and that band with reason to play the fight song after the 75-yard touchdown run from Lauren Easley. First kick for Llewellyn, which began this second half, went out of bounds and put TCU at the 35. Turpin waits back on this one, along with Colby Lisenby. Much better kick this time, and Turpin will take it in. TCU trying to move to 2-0 this season. 12-1 last year. Shared the Big 12 title with Baylor. And neither one of them, of course, made the playoff. Here's what their schedules look like this year. Now, they'll meet the end of November.
Yeah, well, will essentially be the Big 12 championship, and that's how it's shaping up right now. But not easy going on the road the week before at Oklahoma. I think TCU kind of got the short end of the stick as far as scheduling goes, and their non-conference is tougher. They play at Minnesota this year.
Here's Foster Sawyer into the game, a guy that Sonny Cumbie said is what you would create if you were playing Madden as far as what a quarterback should look like.
6'5", 230. Fort Worth, Texas. Went to All Saints Episcopal School. He's a specimen. He just said, because look, when it came down to the backup quarterback battle, Graham Kohlhausen played better. He's outplayed him in the spring ball and training camp. But he said he's got a strong arm. His biggest issue right now is in this fast-paced offense. Sometimes he rushes too much. He says he wants you to be quick up to the line of scrimmage and making your calls and communicating, but not in too much of a hurry.
It's Hicks dragging Stone for a few yards, and it'll be 3rd down and short. And we looked at those schedules for TCU and Baylor. Baylor's non-conference schedule not good at all, but again, those non-conference series are put together years in advance, and before number one, Baylor knew they would be what they are now, and number two, before they really knew the implications because of what the playoff has meant for those non-conference schedules.
And look, I mean, some coaches would favor some of those easier non-conference schedules. They'd rather just focus on their conference play, and they feel like if they could win their conference, they have just as much of a right as anyone else to be in the college football playoffs. So there's obviously something to that. I don't know necessarily that Baylor will want to change that in the future, but I think one of the biggest things that the Big 12 did that should help their case in making the college football playoff this year is they finally put in the tie-breaking rule where head-to-head play now is the first determining factor in figuring out who the conference champion is. Now, if you go back to last season, the big scuttlebutt was TCU and Baylor were considered co-champions. And maybe that played a factor in the college football playoff committee not being able to determine which one was more deserving, so neither ends up making the college football playoff.
12-10 of the 4th quarter. Brady Quinn works scuttlebutt into the broadcast. Well done.
It's my word of the day for my Webster Dictionary app.
For real?
No.
Oh. We like big words.
You got to make the case, though, at some point. Every other conference in the Power 5 has a conference championship game. The Big 12 only has 10 teams. Do they, at some point, either add 2 other teams to get 12 so you can be allowed to have a conference championship game, or do you petition with 10 and try to have one?
Bubble it outside. Pick up of about 5 yards for Charlie Reed. Game break. Here's Jenny Taft.
Thanks, Joe. And over on Fox, the battle for the Cy-Hawk Trophy between Iowa and Iowa State. Sam Richardson somehow finds Jawan Wesley for the 29-yard touchdown pass. What a catch! The Cyclones lead 17-10 at halftime. Joe, back to you.
All right, Jenny. Gus and Joel on the call of that game.
Don't sleep on Iowa State.
Right.
Talented quarterback coming back. Alan Lazard as well as Wesley. Some talent on that offensive side of the football. Known to pull off a couple upsets up there at Ames, Iowa.
Tough place to go.
Yeah. Never been, though, have you?
I have. It was not tough for me. I had some great barbecue and ice cream. But for other teams, here it can be tough. TCU does go to Ames this year. There's some sneaky, tough road games for the Horned Frogs. I mean, the schedule really, when you just glance at it, doesn't look that tough until the last 2 weeks at Oklahoma, Baylor here. But trips to Lubbock, to Manhattan, Kansas, to Ames, Iowa, to Stillwater, weird stuff goes down in those places.
Yeah, and really Oklahoma State is kind of that 4th team in the Big 12 everyone's talking about. I feel like could kind of be in contention for a Big 12 championship. Mason Rudolph, the starter at quarterback there, pretty high on him and his ability to really sling the football around. Here we go. And you look on this schedule, I mean, look at the road games they got. They're going to Lubbock, Kansas State, and Iowa State. We talked about them possibly an upset. Oklahoma State. I mean, some of their toughest tests, they're on the road. Not easy for a TCU team trying to plug so many holes in the defensive side of the football and basically outscore opponents at this point. I mean, not what they'd like to do, but I think based on some of the inexperience and guys still trying to mold into the spots they want.
That's a big part of the reason why Gary Patterson decided to open things up and go with the spread is in the Big 12. You know, his perennially good defense was giving him a chance, but they couldn't keep up with the high-powered offenses in this conference.
Yeah, and they're really the 4-2-5 defense, one of his staples. And he runs it because of the conference they're in. You know, basically everyone in the Big 12 runs some form of the spread. And he's been so effective with it. But, yeah, he's had to adapt to the times with his offense because, unfortunately, the way these teams and offenses are running now, they put up too many yards, too many points. You got to find a way to adapt to the times. And see Gary Patterson doing it, Nick Saban doing it down in Alabama, have Lane Kiffin spread it out a little bit. A lot of these coaches are now having to adapt to the times and be flexible to the talent and the strengths of the players coming in.
He said the other big factor was that they were losing out on offensive recruits here in the Metroplex that were going other places because they wanted to play in these systems that at this point are in the fun ones to play in like they now run.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the jerseys being a recruiting technique with the offenses too. And how many times are you going to throw the football? How many times am I going to get the rock? More plays at the line of scrimmage equal more opportunities for everyone to touch the football. So that's one of the keys. I mean, every quarterback or wide receiver, they want to be a part of those style of offenses and be able to put up the type of numbers they're putting up now in the high school or at the high school level.
Fresh set of downs with 8 minutes left. Christensen with a big hole and running hard for close to another first down.
George Stone, the third, a little bit into that tackle. Been a little bit hesitant today in his first start. Obviously still adapting to a new scheme at Stephen F. Austin. Transferring in from Sacramento City College. We had an illustrious 2 years. He was the top linebacker prospect coming out of Kentucky in high school. Speed of this offense and the spread forcing him to play more in space is not necessarily playing to his strengths this early in his career at Stephen F. Austin.
Christensen dancing across the 25. Bryce Miller with the tackle and second down and about 3. So when you saw that schedule for TCU coming up, another game that they on paper should be fine hosting SMU next, but then at Lubbock September 26th.
That'll be a big one, but slow down now.
The
SMU's got a team. They've got a team. Chad Morris doing a tremendous job turning that program around. I don't necessarily know if they can stop too many people, but they can put up some points now.
Yeah, Baylor saw that.
Yeah.
Last Friday night in the opener.
When you talk about a team in Baylor who there's a lot of hype around that front seven on defense, but boy, their secondary struggled. And when you watch the SMU game just a week ago, they really couldn't get much pressure. I know Sean Oakman didn't play, but they couldn't get a ton of pressure up front. And that's not going to bode well for a secondary that's pretty inexperienced and really a weak part of that team. They're in the mode of having to outscore their opponents, not necessarily to be able to get the defensive stops they need.
We talked about one Texas A&M transfer in Kenny Hill. Matt Davis is a quarterback for SMU. He's another A&M quarterback transfer.
Reminds me a little bit of Boykin, the way his style of play. Very dangerous when he gets outside the pocket of the open field. Good player. A lot of great football in this DFW, really the surrounding area. Good coaching, good players. Do it right down here in Texas.
Yeah. .600 yards of offense for TCU today. And a 63-7 lead over the Lumberjacks. With 154 total yards, 75 of them coming on the touchdown run last drive. Lauren Easley.
Good cutback by Colton Christian there. Getting some reps now.
Short of the tag, short of the tag.
Now, you were a part of that 82-point performance a year ago, part of that broadcast. I think Gary Patterson got a little bit of flack for the score getting out of hand. But look, it's not his job to not put points on the scoreboard. They're running the football. They're mixing in younger players. And you got to do all you can nowadays to impress with style points. Sawyer with a nice run.
Yeah, down to the 2, first down and goal.
But it's not your job to come out here and compete and not worry about scoring touchdowns. I mean, you got your 2s and 3s in. They're going to want to, get in there and score and have and enjoy some of the fun and join in on that. TCU really slowing down the pace right now. This isn't necessarily what they're accustomed to, but obviously working the clock a little bit.
Christensen bouncing off tacklers into the end zone, touchdown. The senior out of California gets the score. TCU an extra point away from cracking 70.
A great job by Patrick Morris, number 58. 64, Matt Pryor on the right side of that offensive line, paving the way. Charlie Reed, 82, the tight end, was in there as well. It's the big fellas.
This is Christensen's first action in a TCU uniform. And so his first career touchdown. And first career point for Jonathan Song. Colton Christensen out of Rancho Santa Margarita, California, Catholic high school, and then Saddleback College. In for the touchdown on a 10-minute drive. All Horned Frogs in the Purple Bowl between TCU and Stephen F. Austin. 617 yards for Gary Patterson's club and only 154 for Stephen F. Austin. 75 of them coming on one long touchdown run for Lauren Easley. Back to the 22. Inside of 4 minutes left in this one. Plenty for Trevon Boykin and the Horned Frogs to feel good about today. Colby Listenby, a monster day, using that speed to run by the defense. Cavante Turpin showing he can move a little bit too. It's an inordinate amount of red hair in this shot. A lot of redheads in this shot, huh? A lot of purple, a lot of red. And not all good news today for TCU. Kenny Iloka, who we saw go out in the first half with some kind of lower body injury, on crutches at this point. Chris Budden is checked into it, but no official word given by the TCU staff what the injury is.
I'm not a doctor. I didn't say it at Holiday Inn Express last night, but seeing him go down the way he did, it's going to be a knee or ankle injury. When you say lower extremity, that's what it looked like. Look at his knee, especially when he was grabbing it. So it doesn't look good for that poor young man. Very talented player.
And on the side of the ball where TCU is already having issues losing bodies, they lost 6 of their top 7 tacklers from last year. Coming into this game, they were down 5 more. And now Iloka injured as well. So without 5 or 6 guys that would have been significant contributors, at least right now, and who knows how long Iloka's injury will keep him out. There's a couple others they hope to have back at some point, but so far, just one of those years. The kind of thing you can't control.
Oh, it's out of your control. Unfortunately, it puts more pressure on Trevon Boykin on his shoulders to outscore people, be efficient with the football every time they get the ball, try to score some sort of points. More pressure, I guess, on the offensive coordinator and that staff.
Here's a deep shot for Judah Jones, but it's overthrown by Hunter Taylor, and it's 3rd down. Boykin's already got the pads on.
I don't think they're in need of him ever going back in.
No.
I don't have a coach nice enough to let me take off my pads
off.
Yeah. Getting chewed out. You know, we talked about the offensive coordinators, Doug Meacham, Sonny Cumby, but they came into a staff with some experienced coaches who were coordinators themselves, but they made it work. Jared Anderson, the O-line coach, Rusty Burns, the outside receivers coach, both have been coordinators before in their career. But, you know, they brought in Doug Meacham, Sonny Cumby, and it's been a very nice working relationship. Curtis Looper, the running backs coach, longtime coach in college football. He could have been a possible candidate.
There's Meacham there, who does not look like it, but he's a former offensive lineman at Oklahoma State. Now paved the way for Thurman Munson, Barry Sanders. There's Coach Looper.
His son used to be on the team.
Yeah, and he played for a season at Stephen F. Austin. Was an all-conference player back in 1993.
The son actually just transferred. He was a wide receiver, this potent offense. Moved him a little bit to cornerback over the offseason because they had so many injuries and so much inexperience there. They wanted a good athlete on that side of the football, but once he saw what Trevon Boykin was able to do in this offense and the spread, he said, Dad, I want to go play quarterback. So he transferred to Arkansas State. He'll now be on a bid to play quarterback there and try to emulate what Trevon Boykin's been able to do.
Well, I mentioned Doug Meacham having played at Oklahoma State. Looper actually began his career at OK State before serving in the military for several years. It's Grayson Muhlstein in the game at quarterback, putting the shoulder down on a gain of 6. Much to the amusement of his teammates.
Out of Decatur, Texas, Decatur High School. Hotbed for talent, you know. TCU recruits well in the state of Texas, Louisiana. We talked about that. I don't think they go much further north than St. Louis.
Don't need to.
No. There's still a couple guys out of Florida. Some transfers, but primarily stay in the DFW area.
Muhlstein pulls it again, diving across the 30. Time now for our Dr. Pepper plays of the game. One-of-a-kind plays of the game brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Colby Listenby. An impressive performance today for him.
Beat number 1, Trey Rosser, for the one-of-a-kind play of the day. Listenby just so fast.
6 catches for 142 and a touchdown. After being held to just 1 catch for 9 yards in the opener against Minnesota last week.
Minnesota's a better team than people realize.
Yeah.
I know they lost running back David Cobb and a couple pieces on defense, but watch and see. Minnesota will have a good year.
Stacey Boyd with his first carry. Producer of today's game is Eric Billigmeyer. The director is Jeremy Green. Brian Biederman, our associate director. Broadcast associate Kevin Word, who stayed up all night getting ready for this show. Mike Meza is our computer statistician. Barry Allen, our statistician. Paul Davis, our spotter. Don Esposito leads the technical team. Special thanks to technical director Damon McGavick. And happy birthday to Eddie O this weekend. Fun town to be in on your birthday weekend, huh?
Oh,
Fort
yeah.
Worth, I'm sure they staked out the spots. I shouldn't assume that. Yeah, I should. There's Eddie O. Happy
Eddie O.
birthday, man.
Big happy birthday with a hang loose.
So winding inside of 30 seconds. Some style points won for Gary Patterson and TCU. We talked about it off of the top. People trying to poke holes in what they did last week.
Took care of business today. This is exactly what they needed to do to continue to gain the respect of everyone else around the country in college football.
70-7, the final score. For Brady Quinn, Chris Budd, and the rest of our crew, Joe Davis saying so long from Fort Worth. Now he's sending to Rob Stone in Los Angeles.
All right, Joe, thank you.